Behold the might, behold the magic, a rare and mighty cryptid in action. The majestic other Chris, scourging for food in his natural environment. Look at his form, look at his posture. Look at the intensity at which he searches. He doesn't know what he's looking for, but I'm sure he'll find it soon enough.
Hey! Get out of here!
So hello there, people of the internet. Today, I come back at you, surprise, finally, with a thoughts and impressions video on this video game I imported called Girls und Panzer Dream Tank Match, which I'm sure you guessed by the title, but... So anyway, I'm not familiar with the TV show this game is based off of. In fact... Well, there's this Italian guy on Discord who's like completely fucking obsessed with it, and I thought it just looked like, you know, the dumbest fucking shit ever. But I saw this was coming to Switch, and I figured I'd quit being a bitch and I'd try it out for myself. Now, as far as I can tell, this is supposed to be based off the movie Girls und Panzer das Finale. In this thrilling retelling of events featuring VN-style cutscenes, compressed images, and world-class AI. In this game about girls who are probably too young to be responsibly handling, 20-ton war machines, which to me sounds like a disastrous idea on many levels, as they cruise around in these tanks that, shoot all these lethal projectiles that probably should kill them, and drift around like they're Mach 5 or something. And speaking of it, which, what's wrong with that girl's eyes? And while I'll admit that I'm probably not the target demographic for this game, I'll say it's not a terrible game, although it is one that suffers from a few flaws. So let's start out with the things I did like first. Well, one of the things I did like is how the Italian girls are all named after food, because that sounds like the sort of jackass thing that I would do to be funny. Because think about it, that's like naming a fucking American cheeseburger the French fry. And I would try to read their names in an Italian accent, but the best I can do is Russian. So I'll leave that to the professor, since he's pretty good at being culturally insensitive.
A spaghetti, pepperoni, cannoli, pizza pie.
Each character also has their own commander ability, which you can activate after filling up an AK bar, granting you simple things such as increased attack, increased armor, along with more unique characteristics like spotting enemy tanks regardless of the line of sight. And like you would expect, there's also statistics for each tank, dictating such things as armor, attack strength, and maneuverability, of course, and the game also gives you a degree of a very limited aesthetic customizability that allow you to move decals, change colors, and just simple shit like that. And one thing I did appreciate in the game is that sloped armor is actually taken into account, which honestly is a little bit of an extra detail I didn't expect to be in a weeaboo game. All the tanks also have weak spots which can be targeted for a considerable bit of extra damage, as well as basic principles like generally being weaker on the sides and rear, and the treads can also be temporarily disabled to hinder movement for brief periods of time, which you can pretty much repair pretty quickly. One thing I did think that was pretty cool, just a small detail, is that when your character's actually peeking up out of the hatch, you have your camera controls like you would in any other game when you're piloting a vehicle, where you can press the shoulder buttons to look to the sides, press both of them together to the rear, which is pretty standard. But when they duck back into the tank, which they'll automatically do when you're under fire, and then you can also manually make them go down, and that'll actually, lock the camera to seeing just what's in front of you, and instead the shoulder buttons will kind of just do these minor alterations to your vehicle's orientation. I also think the map sizes of the game are actually perfect for the kind of gameplay, as they're not so large that you're going to spend forever just wandering around looking for people, but they are big enough to where you can actually maneuver and kind of hide and whatever. But they're small enough to where, you know, the action is pretty consistent. While the static background images that they use for the backgrounds of the like VN cutscenes are actually pretty poorly compressed looking, the characters themselves are bright and colorful and pleasing to look at, although pretty static. Make no mistake, this isn't like half-price Steel Beast or anything, and it's pretty much the exact kind of game you would expect from an anime tie-in, for better or for worse. Now, I didn't play the PS4 version of the game, so I can't really make a exact comparison, but the game advertises itself as having over 40 characters and having a new tournament style mode called Panzer Festival, where you pretty much play in a ladder, a tournament style ladder, and move up each time. And with every team you defeat, you pick another character from the rival team to join your own team, and you continually grow up until you reach the finale. Now is my favorite part of the video, the part where I get to be a bitchy prick. You see, I think I enjoyed the domination and festival modes the most when I could actually play the game without being interrupted every 30 seconds so they could talk more, because they do talk like a lot in the story mode. Some of the stages are especially obnoxious when they literally don't go a second without keeping their goddamn mouths shut. I mean, just look at this shit.
I know I don't hear that under general in my chat.
However, there are two very, very apparent flaws in this game that kind of ruins my enjoyment of it. Now, you see, from my footage, it looks like the game runs fine, but for whatever reason, my external capture card that I have to use for my console games, I can't just directly import the footage into my video editor for, editing, so I have to run it through Handbrake, and I think Handbrake is doing some sort of smoothing on the video, because while it looks like from the footage that the game actually runs really well, in reality, it couldn't be further from the truth. The game runs about as well as a criminally obese man competing in the triathlon. In reality, the actual performance is downright atrocious, and the game is always running at far below 30 frames per second. And I would really hate to direct you to another video, but Digital Foundry did a performance comparison that more accurately shows the game's horrendous performance. And while it's not unplayable, it's pretty annoying and shoddily optimized, and I just can't imagine that the Switch is not capable of running this kind of game properly, and I know it's due to shoddy optimization that can potentially be patched out later on down the line, but seeing as this game's been out for a few months now on Switch, I wouldn't get my hopes up that they'll actually get around to fixing it anytime soon. The game's other major flaw would have to be its artificial intelligence, which is downright abysmal. See, while I didn't really notice it too bad in the story mode, it wasn't too long in the other modes before I saw enemies routinely getting stuck on walls, ramming into each other, running solo into the rival team like they're fucking Rambo, and then dogpiling all over each other and not being able to figure out how to go into reverse. The control is also a pain in the ass, with the analog aiming being almost non-existent. Your turret only has 2 real speeds. Pushing slightly on the Joy-Con makes the turret go fast, and slightly more makes it go Sonic the fucking Hedgehog, which makes it a real chore to aim at anything. I think the idea might be that it's a requirement to zoom in for any sort of precision, but that just makes it excessively tedious, especially in close quarters combat. And it doesn't really help either that I think the core concept of the game is utterly stupid. I think the idea is that driving around tanks and shooting each other is a school sport designed to turn young girls into model citizens or something, and I can kind of see the logic there. However, there is a short bit in there explaining that the shells are designed to be non-lethal and not penetrate and leave the driver's bloody corpses, which makes no goddamn sense. And I am no expert, but I am pretty sure that the way it works is that a shell either penetrates and does damage, or the shell bounces off and causes no damage. So that explanation is complete and total bullshit. Well, that's just me being a nitpicky asshole, though, and truth be told, the few issues that plague the game let down what is otherwise a pretty decent tank game. At first, I thought the game was complete and total garbage, but then once I started playing in the modes outside of the story mode, I started to like the game more. Mechanically, the game is actually pretty decent, and there's a good variety of tanks and characters to play with. If I had the option, and This is what I would recommend to you, unless you really want that Switch portability or you don't have the option. I would just get the PlayStation 4 version, because that game doesn't look like it's plagued by the same poor performance in the Switch port, and you can buy the deluxe edition content as cheap DLC. So has this game made me want to go out and watch Girls in Panzer? No, and I probably never will, but it sure as hell is a lot better than some of the tie-in games we got back in the day. And for fuck's sake, please someone get her an optometrist.